nothing to me. So what else was there? Play. And so I was sort of like Brazil, you know? La 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 la. You know, I just loved, that was it. And school went along with it. I went to school, and then I waited till that was over, and then I played. I moved on up in age with this theory of play. After school, play. By the way, because of my brother Russell, I began to understand the environment. Because when Russell was 2, I remember my mother saying that she had to go to work. She said, "Now, I want you to watch Russell." Russell was 2 years old, which meant I had to stay in the house. I couldn't go out and play. So I said, "Okay, Mom." My mother went out. Well, I had to play because we had a game out on the ball field in the projects. So trying to figure out how to get Russell to stay in the house so I could go play. So I said to Russell, I said, "Russ, you're going to be a man someday." He was so proud when I said that. He had on short pants, you know, and little high-top white shoes with white stockings. He said, I hope so. I said, "Yeah." And I said, "One of the things about being a man, Russ, is learning how to keep your mouth shut." And that's a sign of a man. "Do you want to be a man?" He said, "I want to be a man." I said, "Okay. Now I'm going to test you today. I want you to sit in this chair and stay there, Russ. I'm going to pretend that I'm outside. You won't see me, but I'll be looking through every window to see if you move except to go to the bathroom. Can you do that, Russ?" He said, "I can do it." I said, "Because you want to be a man?" He said, "Because I want to be a man." I said, "I think you can make it, Russ." I said, you look like a strong little boy." He said, "I hope so." I said, "And if Mom says to you, 'Did I leave the house?' what do you say?" He said, I said, "Russ, you're taking too long." He said, "I tell her that you didn't go anywhere." I said, "Russ, we'll give it a try." So I went out and I played. And I knew what time when my mother was coming back. 10 minutes before she was supposed to get back, I came back and Russ was still in the chair. I said, "You moved twice." He said, "How'd you know?" I said, "I saw you." He said, "Well, I just went to the bathroom, that's all." I said, "I know it." He said, "Am I a man?" I said, "You're a man." My mother came home. My mother hit me. And Russ said, "I didn't say anything." I said, "Shh." She said, "You went out." She said, "You went out." She said, "And you played ball. And I told you to stay here and watch Russell." Russ started crying. And he said to my mother, "I'm not a man." My mother said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I'm not a man. I didn't tell you anything. I'm not a man." My mother said, "What is he talking about?" I said, "Just something we were talking about." She said, "Wait till your father comes home." Well, that was an old thing for me, so I didn't care anymore. I just soon die right there in the chair. She said, "A little bird told me." And I tried to figure out how a bird. And the next day I went out and I looked up in the air, and sure enough, they were up there flying around. I became paranoid. Anytime I see a bird, even today, I get a chill. Strange things. But it's the things that parents lay on you. Little things like that. A little bird told me. And poor Russ, he never became a man. Graduated from elementary school. I picked a junior high school, Fitzsimons, 26 in color. Now you'll all say, well, he put a plant out there. 26 in Cumberland, and I had to ride the trolley car from 10th and Parish, 23 trolley, to Susquehanna Avenue, Susquehanna on up to 26th Street, walk about 2 blocks to Fitzsimons. 7th grade, had a lot of fun, except there's a thing called homework. Now, I don't know what these people thought they were doing. Homework. It doesn't make sense. If you work all day, why would you want to work when you come home? Just people who want to annoy you. 8th grade became my downfall, I guess. I walked into a class, geometry. Now, up to that point, I thought I had studied all the math that there had, you know, you got it. I can add, subtract, divide, and do fractions, and I'm wonderful on if a man. If you say to me, if a man, I'm perked up. All right, go ahead. Where did he go? What did he do? How much did he weigh? But now they got a thing called geometry. I didn't know what it was, but it was a form of math. But I think I got it covered. She sat down, and in walked a short man. He's about 5'7", had a profile like Dick Tracy. 5'7", wore the same sport coat all his life. His name is Benjamin Sapolsky. Benjamin Sapolsky was a Russian Jew who taught geometry and had come, as far as I'm concerned, all the way from Russia to bother me. Benjamin Sapolsky loved geometry. You could tell it in his spirit, the way he turned to the board and how excited he was to point to a triangle and talk for 2 hours about the degree of a triangle and the sides. He loved the sides of it. He loved the base. And he passed out books on this triangle and the rectangle and the hypothesis. And you had to memorize these things. And I kept saying to myself, why? I kept waiting for Mr. Sapolsky to tell me why. But he was just so enthralled with the angle and the degree of it and the radius and the diameter. Oh, it just came out. And he did everything except cry. And then he gave out homework. Do the following problems at home. So why can't we do them here? Home is to play. Because I'm like Brazil. La, 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 la. So I never took the book home. Because home is to play. And home is home. And I'm not taking this stuff home. On top of that, I'm getting tired. I'm trying to figure out when we are no longer going to have English. Because it's stupid. They keep saying English. English. I already speak English. And so does everybody around me. What are we studying it for? And on top of that, they grade you on it. You got a D in English. So said, well, what does that mean? The guy on the trolley car didn't understand me? And then they were making up things. What is subjective clause of the subjunction and cross with apostrophe and put your commas? I'm not writing anybody. If I want to reach him, I'll call him on the phone. And I don't know anybody. People I know live right over there. And if I need to write them, I'll buy a card. Happy birthday. And sign my name. So what is all this English stuff? I can read. I read Treasure Island because I had to. I read all of that. And I know Mark Twain. I read all that. I can read and I can write, and the newspapers are not that difficult. I'm not old enough to go to war, so I go right past all that. So there was two things that was just stupid. Just old people with nothing better to do than bother young people. And stop them from playing. La 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 la. And so I never turned in the homework. And Mr. Sapolsky called me up after the bell rang. And he said, you're not turning in your homework. I said, well, I told you why. He said, yeah, but I don't understand how many more relatives you have left who are going to die. He said, why are all these people dying when you're supposed to turn in your homework? I said, well, I don't know, Mr. Sapolsky. You know, I was jealous of T. Parham. T. Parham had a dog. His dog ate up his homework. I didn't have a dog. Not allowed to have dogs in the project. So I just had relatives who died. And to be perfectly frank, a couple of them died 3 times. Because I had forgotten who died, you know. And he didn't accept the fact that the person got well, and we thought he was dead, but... So Mr. Sapolsky said I owed him all this homework. Mr. Sapolsky gave an exam one day. 4 problems in 55 minutes. I finished 1. Used up 12 pieces of paper. I just read the question and I started to work. 12 pieces of paper, and I handed the 12 pieces in. About 4 days later, Mr. Sapolsky handed the exam results back, and I had an F. But the word correct written on the front page, and underneath it said, see me after class. The bell rang, and I went up to him, and he said, I want to talk to you about your paper here. Papers. Your book. On the first problem. I said, yes, sir. He said, you know, I failed you on the exam. I said, yeah. He said, but you got the answer correct. He said, and I followed your philosophy. He said, you're a genius. I said, thank you. He said, for the year 400 A.D., he said, you know, they've passed all this now. They don't do this anymore. He said, and you could use up just this much of one piece of paper if you just read the book. I said, Mrs. Sapolsky, I don't like geometry. He said, but you look at what you've done. You've gone through 12 sheets of paper to get the answer correct. I followed this. You are brilliant. Now, if you just memorize what's in the book, you could be even better. I said, but then you'd give me more work. So he did a scene. He said, that's the way he got, you know. And I said, Mr. Sapolsky, so he said, you see me after school. I said, Mr. Sapolsky, I live all the way in North Philadelphia in the projects, and it'll be nighttime when I get. He said, you don't want. I said, Mr. Sapolsky, I just want to play. I just want to play. He said, don't you want to be anything? I said, yes. He said, what? I said, I don't know. He said, you could be a lawyer. I said, yeah, but that's hard. And so I graduated from the 8th grade. Got a D in geometry. I don't know how. An 8B, the second half of 8th grade. They had geometry 2. These people are relentless, man. And I got Mr. Sapolsky again. And he looked at me, and he was passing out the books, and he said, he didn't even give me a book. He said, you don't need one. There's a high school in Philadelphia called Central High School. Did you go to Central? Huh? Okay. Anyway, when I went to Central, yes, it was. It wasn't. No, I don't. It's not that I don't believe you. I just want these people to understand. It's a. When I went, Central High School was an all-boys school, but it was founded in 1836 or something like that. It was the second school, high school, put up for public school for what they said was very bright boys. And I wanted to go there. Not because I was going to get a fine education, but because of the fact that they have these book covers, you know, and they say Central High School and when you ride the subway, old people look at you and say, you're very bright, aren't you? And so I took the test and I passed and I was accepted to something. My mother and father went crazy. Oh, and they started kissing me and everything, man. But I still had to watch Russ and Bob. I went to Central and they had a thing called trigonometry. I said, I'll be glad when I get through these ometry things, man, because there's too many ometries. And the trigonometry professor was Dr. Stroop, a retired professor of math from MIT, who, why he retired and then came to teach, I don't know. It's sort of redundant, you know. I retire. Well, what are you going to do? I'm going to go teach. Dr. Stroop was 6'4", and he had a very high voice. And he loved trigonometry. Oh. And he got sick. And they called off the class. Dr. Stroop is sick. Come back tomorrow. She's going to get a substitute teacher. Dr. Stroop is still sick. Now, substitute teachers are the best. So I couldn't wait for that, man. It was just wonderful. But in walked Benjamin Sapolsky. Now, why he was subbing, I have no idea. But I'm telling you, this man he came all the way from Russia to bother me. And he walked in, and I guess the feeling was mutual because he turned around and he saw me and he went. So he made a speech about trigonometry and how he was going to be teaching it until Dr. Stroop would get well again. And he turned and he saw these figures and the cylinder. Oh my God, he he went even crazier about a cylinder than he did with the triangle. And he was dancing and drawing and turning to us and saying, do you see? Well, at Central, it just seemed that these people, these kids came from outer space because they were answering and they were loving, yes, and the sides and the color and the predators. And I sat back there and he gave an exam and I did my 12 pages and he said, well, you got it right again. I don't suck. F. Well, Central was tough. You had to study, but I didn't. I would come home and I would play. La, 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 la. And a lot of relatives died, but the teachers at Central were very sympathetic, but they wanted to see the homework even after the funeral and the burial. They still wanted it, and they gave me time. And then I talked to the school psychologist, and I told her I wanted to leave. She said, no, stay, which was very strange to me because she was punishing me. So I transferred to Germantown High School. And I stayed in the 10th grade for another 3 years. Actually, my father encouraged me to quit, and so I quit. I was finally at the point of freedom. I am having a ball now. I am out, I got a job, and I was in the shipping room, lifting boxes, putting them on a truck. And I was making like $1 something an hour, and this was the best. I got a check, gave half the money to my mother, kept half for myself, and then I went out. I don't know where I went, I just went out, you know. And, but there was nobody in the neighborhood, just old people or young people. And I couldn't play with either one of them. And I got tired. So I went down and I joined the Navy. And the recruiter said to me, well, you've joined the Navy to see the world. I said, no, I'm just trying to get off my block. Now, there's a thing in the Navy called watch. This is where you stand guard and protect something. Now, we're on a naval base, which is protected anyway, with real sailors, with guns, and we even have a ship in the middle of the base on cement. I don't know, but I guess it's ready to go. And they're training us. So they have a list in your barracks that says, watch, list. And if your name is there, you look opposite, says time, and then they put Navy time, 02:30. If there's a 0 in front of the number, that means early in the morning. That means after midnight, see? Then you get past 12 noon, then they don't stop at 12, and go back to 1. They go 13, 14, 15, all the way around. So this one day I saw my name, William Henry Cosby Jr., and the serial number, and it said 02:30 to 04:30. It's a 2-hour watch, and I'm on the list. And I just talked to my friends, I guess until 11. And I went to sleep, and I remember, I don't even think I had fallen. It didn't feel like I had fallen asleep. It just felt like I was asleep. Like I was asleep, but I don't remember falling asleep in terms of enjoying. Because the light went on in my face. That's the way it felt. And I opened my eyes, and there it was, a light with a hand holding a flashlight. And the voice behind the light said, "Are you Cosby?" And for a second I thought, tell him no. And then I realized this is the Navy. They know who I am. He said, "Are you paralyzed?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Then get up." So I did like this. He said, "All the way." And I was up, and he ruined my whole day. So I got dressed. Now it's dark, 2:30. He takes me out to a place, gives me a wooden rifle with a bolt action, old-time bolt action. This is as close as you can get to a blunderbuss. No bullets. And this greenish belt to put on, which means I'm on watch. I have no bullets, a belt, and a white hat to fight off the enemy if they come. He takes me out to a place which is the place where we hang our clothes to dry. It's the clothesline yard. There are no clothes on the line. There's nothing on the line. He says, watch this. I thought it was some kind of show was going to happen or something. You know, I stood there like this. I said, okay, what? He said, look, stand at attention. So, you know, and I did a thing and came, present, home, you know, like that. And I said, well, where's the show? He said, there is no show. Watch this. So I'm not going to do Abbott and Costello, you know. So I just stood there. He said, now you'll walk from here and you'll come back to here and keep an eye on it. I said, on what? He said, the clothesline. I said, it's made out of wire. Who's going to steal it? And why aren't the people who were watching the base doing their job? I could be sleeping. He said, you'll do what you're told, sailor. So I stood out there, and I got sleepy, and I got mad because I'm out there watching something out there. There's nothing to watch, and it feels stupid. And if somebody does come, I said, halt, who goes there? I don't have any bullets. Please don't hurt me. Or hold it like a baseball. Who's around there? And I got a white hat on. This is stupid. And so the man came back, and I was crying, and he got in my face. I'm not your mother, and you'll have it, and you'll do what you're told, and you've just been and I wanted to punch him, but I knew he'd put me in the brig, and he said, yeah, you can think what you want, but So I got off watch, man. I came back. The lights are still out. You're not allowed to turn any lights on. I went in the shower, and I wrote my mother. And I told her what they did to me. And I didn't care about commas or semicolons. My mother knew what I was saying. And my mother sent a letter to the base commander and thanked him for what they were doing. And told him to do it some more. I spent 3 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days disliking it. But in the meantime, I took the GED exam, and I decided that I was going to go to college. Somehow, something hit me and said I shouldn't be here, and this was my own fault. I made this on my own. So the day I got out, I had planned to take all my Navy stuff and throw it into the bay, or where I was in Norfolk, Virginia. And I did not go home right away. I went by the Temple University bookstore. I said, what books do you have to read when you're a freshman? And I bought every one of them, even the School of Dentistry. And I was ready, fired up. Freshman year, nothing got past me. I studied everything. At the end of my freshman year, I was out on the track. I weighed 178 pounds. in wonderful physical shape. 75 degrees, about 40% humidity, just running up and down the middle of the track. Doing well in all my exams, turning in homework. I mean, and adding extra pages because I felt the professor should know that. And a friend of mine came running over to me, and he said, "Hey, Cos, you made the dean's list." And I said, "Oh, God, no." And he said, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "I didn't do anything wrong, man. I'm not watching any clotheslines. I'm not doing nothing." He said, "No, that means that you're above 3.0. I said, "Yeah." And tell the dean to call me. Junior year is the year in, you know, where you begin your student teaching, because I'm in teachers college. I've chosen teachers college because there are millions of me's out there, and I'm going to catch every one of them. I'm going to stop them and tell them my story. And they're going to learn and know why they ought to do it. And so I was a physical education teacher. My junior year, going to teach physical education. And I had the uniform, black pants with the creases in them, black leather sneakers, way before any leather sneakers. Teachers wore the black leather sneakers. White shirt and a black bow tie, long sleeve. Looked like a referee for a boxing match. And Scotty Moyer and I were so proud. And we got a junior high school. That's where you catch them. See, when puberty hits, you know, and they catch them when they're horneties. Just catch them. So he said, we're in the office of the principal, and they're handing out so-and-so, you have this, and Scotty Moyer, you have physical education, report to room, so forth and so on. He said, and Bill Cosby, William Cosby, that was before I was Bill. He said, William Cosby, you have geometry. So I don't think you understand. I have a bow tie and this white shirt, and I am physical education. He said, no, we looked at your transcript, you are way, so forth and so on in the family crib. I said, right. And go to room 30 something. So that's your supervisor. Now, how do you know? I walked in, I opened the door, and he was sitting like this, and I knew from his sport coat and I had the chip in my hand, and I said, Mr. Sapolsky? And he said, yes, and he turned around and he looked at me, and he recognized who I was. And his chair started to spin around about 100 miles an hour, just kept going. And he turned into butter. And he stood up and he said, you? And I said, yes, Mr. Sapolsky. I said, Mr. Sapolsky, I'm a physical education teacher. I'm going to graduate from Temple University Teachers College and teach physical education. I don't know why they gave me this, geometry. He said, exactly. You don't know anything about geometry. I said, exactly, Mr. Zapolsky. Let's do something about this. Well, my goodness, for the first time, Mr. Zapolsky and I were bonding. We walked down that hallway, man. He was warm, man. You could feel the heat. And I was just saying, go get her, Mrs. Zapolsky, because they don't know. And Mr. Zapolsky went up to the desk, and the desk hit him about, you know, right? And the principal came out, and he called him by his first name and said, John, this boy, you've given him to me. And the principal said, yes, we have, Ben. He said, and I'm going to tell you something. This boy, and he did like this, and I know that he started to say, doesn't know anything about geometry. But he didn't say it. And I think the reason he didn't say it is because he would then have to say, I know because I taught him. And he said, it's going to be the best geometry teacher. He said, follow me. And we went on. I said, but Mr. Zapolsky, he said, you shut up. You'll never get out of Temple alive. I was born in 1937, the child of William and Anna Cosby, who were brought up in Virginia, which is considered the South and the land of the oink. My mother and father ate oink, and they loved oink grease. Lard is what they ate. And they sopped grease with a biscuit. And they loved butter. And they sopped and put and drank and ate grease. Sausage, bacon, ham, the oink. They loved it. Fat back, salt pork, oink. And they ate it. And I was born with lard all on my head, and in the cracks of my arm and the back of my leg. And I tried to explain to my wife that I am addicted to grease. Praise the Lord. But no, she wants to know. Yeah. What did you eat today? What did you eat yesterday? I love cake. I love pie. I love potato chip. I love salt. I do not want yogurt, plain yogurt. It's healthy. Why don't you like it? Because it tastes like bad breath. And people like that, they're relentless. They keep coming with nothing. You know, they go to what's called the health food store, which is really food harassment. Come with a bag of potato chips, sun-roasted, unsalted. Here, eat these. I said, I'm not interested in just making noise. I can do that with those little poppers, you know, I can do that all day. I want to eat. I love sugar. I don't want substitute nothing. I want the real deal. I love real sugar, white, no brown sugar. You drop in the dirt. I love cake with real sugar. Those substitute nothing. I love ice cream. But because I'm married and I have this wife who is controlling me, I have to eat like a common thief and crook in the night, hiding ice cream under the sofa, looking like a child. I didn't have anything, I swear. Well, you have to act like a child when a grown woman says, let me smell your breath. Vanilla, Every night I eat a small pint of ice cream. A small pint, punk, as opposed to a half gallon, which is what I really want. I'm doing you a favor, I said to her. Just eat a small pint. And I know, I had my blood drawn. The cholesterol was 741. But it's supposed to be. If you eat what I eat, it's supposed to be. The doctor started freaking out. Oh, my God. I said, it's supposed to be 741, man. I eat cake, pie, ice cream. You're going to die. Yes. Isn't everybody? Because of my cholesterol, my wife, who's in charge of me, see, those of you not married long enough don't understand that after a while, your wife, I mean, they read things, newspapers. And then they leave articles in the bathroom for you to read. You know, big note, pertaining to you. Which 3 months from now will flip to be the other side. So-and-so is no good for you. Shouldn't have it. You cut it out 3 months later, and it will cure this. Now you got to go back on it. But she won't show you that note. So I went out to have my blood checked and everything. My wife, in the meantime, after seeing 741, and by the way, it doesn't bother me that it is. I mean, every once in a while, my left arm will go numb. But if you do like this, it'll go away. And I'm not worried about it because, look, to be perfectly blunt, you sit on the toilet long enough, your right leg will go bad, it'll go numb. So what, is that cholesterol or what? So the doctor called me. I was in Los Angeles, and I'm on my way to Las Vegas for 2 nights and then fly back east home. And the doctor called, and he said, look, I'd like you to have your blood drawn and checked again. I said, why? He said, well, there's something. He said, I don't know what it is. He said, but your hemoglobin is low. He said, now, it may be just the machine or whatever, but your hemoglobin is low. So I said, well, what is hemoglobin? He said, well, that's the amount of blood you have in your body. So I said, well, what is it? He said, well, I'm reading 10.2. So I said, well, what should it be? He said, 15, 14. He said, but don't worry. I said, don't worry? 1/3 of my blood is gone, and you're saying don't worry? What kind of doctor are you, man? He said, the same one that said don't worry on your 741 cholesterol. So I said, well, you better wake up and get serious now. So I fly into Las Vegas, and I'm saying, God, you know. Now, at this point, in reality, for all of us just about, there's a point of denial. And it's silly, one's behavior. For instance, it's similar to you're driving and you get sleepy. And all of a sudden you start to talk yourself into the fact that you could take a little nap and wake up before you hit something. I mean, many of us have been in that, but that's when you are dangerous to yourself, man. You're driving, you're going, yeah, okay, now the road is straight. All right, here we go. And I'll time it. Oh, there it is. See that? I knew all the time. You know, and you wake up, you know, with lights flashing and wonder how the hell you got there with the door in your head. Well, there's also something about you. You say, okay, man, I got a little thing right here, but that's all. It feels like it's a lump, but that's okay. Why don't you go see a doctor? No, it's all right. It'll go away. It'll go away. You know, you don't want to go because the doctor may say, oh, you've got it. That means that you have it. But if you don't go, it means you don't have it. And it's better to just not have it. You know, he said, women, very simple, go have your breast checked. Oh, no, thank you. Why? Because I may have it. And if they don't check, then I don't have it. So what if you wait till it's too late? Well, then I have it. And then I'll say, well, you know, nobody wants to have it. And if you don't want to have it, then don't go see anybody. So I'm laying up there. I don't know why I'm losing all this blood. I'm not going to go have any blood checked, man. And I'm not telling any doctor anything. Because if you tell them something, then they say, mm-hmm. And then you might have it. So I'm not telling them anything. But anyway, I did the 2 shows, and I was feeling dizzy. And I remembered that I was a little dizzy, but I thought it was the flu, because my wife had the flu. I thought I caught the flu, and I said, well, maybe. So around 2:30 in the morning, there's a place, Las Vegas Medical Center. From the Hilton Hotel, I jog over to the Las Vegas Medical Center, 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. And there's just a skeleton crew, but somebody who can look after you and take care of you. I said, and they of course know me. And I said, I'd like to have some blood drawn. So the lady said, for what? I said, well, my doctor wants to check my hemoglobin. So this guy came out who was a doctor, I guess. You know, 3:30 in the morning, you don't know what you're getting, you know. They could dress up, you know, a guy from valet parking, you know. Put a stethoscope in his pocket. What seems to be the trouble? You know, the same as an auto mechanic, you know. So he says, okay, we'll draw the blood. I said, now, look, you know, if my blood is low, why are we drawing blood to see if I'm low? Don't you guys have another test to see if there's blood? He said, hey, 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 hey. So anyway, he drew the blood and he handed the vials to some guy, you know, who got on a burro, you know, rode across the desert, you know, to Mount Sinai or somewhere for him to run it on the machine. Stat. So I'm sitting there and the guy says, what did he? I said, well, it was 10.2, and we're just talking about my blood. So he says, well, have you been bleeding from anywhere? I said, well, not that I've seen. So he said, have you had any stomach pains or anything? So now this guy is asking questions. I ain't telling him nothing, man. So I said, no, not having any pains, which I really hadn't. But then I started thinking if I had or not. He said, have you had any dizziness or anything? So I said, no, I wasn't dizzy about nothing. And which I had, but I'm not telling him, because then he's going to say I have it. He said, have you looked at your stools? So I said, of course not, which is a lie. As soon as you turn 40, You look at anything that comes out of your body, man. You can put a Q-tip in and do like this, and you're, all right, that's a good color, all right. But, dear, what color are your brains? So I said, well, just in case I look at them, what am I looking for? He says, if you're bleeding in the intestines, it will turn your stools black. He said, then you will know that you're bleeding from the intestines, and that's the one time that black is not beautiful. Oh, he fell on the floor laughing at that. He just, he thought that was the funniest thing he ever heard. I'm sitting there looking at him. He's talking about me, and I'm dying. And he's talking about black is not beautiful. So he said, if you haven't looked at your stools, he said, because I have a feeling that that's where you're bleeding from if you can't see it. He said, you know, there's a test to see if there's blood in your stool. So he brings out a packet. He says, now look, here's the packet, and this is the liquid. He says, and you open this up. He said, you get a little, put it on your finger. He says, now look, this is medical, I'm telling you. And you just get a little, and you rub it onto this pad, and then you drop the water, or the liquid on it, and if it turns blue, you are bleeding internally. So I said, okay. So he says, well, why don't you try it? So I said, why don't you try it? So he says, there's nothing wrong with me. I said, no, man, you do it to me. Okay? So he said, all right, because we got nothing to do. You know, the guy's on the bureau. So we go into the room, and he says, you know, it's always funny. They have to tell you. If they're going someplace, you know, drop your trousers. So what else did you expect? You can pull them up? So, all my life, I have been a person who, my body protects a certain area. It has always done that. It has always been conscious of that area. Whenever I was, you know, with other, you know, like Camp Happy, places like that, you know, I've always just had, there's nothing, it's not latent homosexuality, none of that Holden Caulfield stuff. It's just the ears and eyes say, be careful. You know, I have nothing, I'm not homophobic or anything. It's just that I know that my body was built for things to go out of that area, you know. And anything trying to get in, that's the wrong, you know, there's another place where it can go in. But do you understand what I'm saying? Another thing about, okay? So the ears and the eyes, they're always going, something's near, look out. You know, and when that happens, I lock. The muscle, it just locks. It becomes airproof. And it takes 20 minutes for those muscles. You have to talk to them. You have to walk around, and you say, everything is fine. And they say, really? But it's the gossiping part, the ears and the eyes, and they say, somebody's coming. And they lock right up. So this is not a good moment for me, because I've dropped my trousers, and the first thing I do is I dig in with this foot, because if I stand like this, then I'm up in the air. I just go straight up, out jump Michael Jordan. I mean, from a stand, don't even have to bend the knees. You just, and I'm going up there. Then I have to walk around for about 30 seconds, 40. So he's gonna go up, get a little bit, and then rub it and put the blue dot. This guy goes up, he's up, and then he starts moving, he starts going off. So I say, hey, man, what are you doing? He said, I'm feeling your prostate. I said, you're not supposed to do that exam. That's another exam. Nobody asked you to do that. You're supposed to go up, get a little bit. I said, now get the test. He said, I can't. I said, why? He said, because you still have the glove.
Good night. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next, an evening of classic American comedy continues with one man and 100 years of comedy. Watch Bob Hope, The Road to Laughter, next on KERA.